In the Circuit Court of the 18th Judicial Circuit in and for Seminole County, Florida, State of Florida versus George Zimmerman. Verdict: we, the jury, find George Zimmerman not guilty.
Welcome to a special live edition of Huckabee. George Zimmerman was found not guilty last night by a jury of 6 women who heard evidence, were instructed as to the law, and acted with clarity. Now, they're not heroes. They're just citizens doing one of the most difficult and thankless tasks that any American is ever called upon to perform: judging the guilt or innocence of another human being. George Zimmerman is not a hero. He was a young Hispanic man. He believed he was in danger, and he used a gun to end what he felt was a threat to his own life. Now, he's going to spend the rest of his life second-guessing his decision to get out of the car to follow a young man that he thought might be part of a crime wave in his neighborhood. And Trayvon Martin is not a hero. He was a young man whose life ended way too soon, maybe because he decided to confront a man he believed was showing him disrespect. Even if one believes the jury got it right with a not guilty verdict, there's no reason for high-fiving and backslapping, because it was a tragedy for all involved. And despite the screams of Al Sharpton, who sees racism in everything and who claimed the verdict was a slap in the face of justice, this was, in fact, justice as it was designed under our Constitution. Justice doesn't mean perfection or even right. It means we're reminded that we are a nation of laws, not men. A nation with imperfect legislators who write those laws reflecting our collective moral code. And then laws which are enforced by a separate branch of government and, when believed to be broken, are submitted to yet a third branch of government to try to resolve whether the laws were broken and even whether they were just laws. By design, we have chosen to put the burden of proof on the accuser and the prosecutor and to presume the innocence of the accused unless he or she is proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Benjamin Franklin, borrowing from the English jurist William Blackstone, said, "Better that 100 guilty persons should escape than one innocent suffer." And that's reflected in our system being weighted in favor of the accused. Well, if there are no heroes, there are some villains. The media deserves to be excoriated for their role in inventing many parts of the narrative before the facts and evidence were even presented. Thank God the press is not a true fourth branch of government. They emphasized a race factor because Trayvon Martin was black, but they were blatantly dishonest in not acknowledging that George Zimmerman was Hispanic. Now, should they claim, well, he's only half Hispanic, then they've got to be equally honest in saying that our President Barack Obama is only half black and that if he had a son, he really wouldn't look like Trayvon Martin. The facts in the case as presented in the court under oath were far different than the heated comments that were spewed by Al Sharpton and others who called more attention to themselves than they did to the tragedy. Now, if a march needs to happen, maybe it ought to happen in Chicago, where the murder rate for young black males leads the nation. Almost 1/2 of the nation's murder victims are black, and a majority of them are between the ages of 17 and 29. Black people account for just over 13% of the U.S. population, and yet they were the victims of almost 50% of all the murders, and 93% of black murder victims were killed by other black people. We don't have a race problem so much as we have a grace problem. Our culture declares that people are expendable and disposable. We treat others with coarse and harsh contempt, and then we act shocked at a murder rate. We don't need a race summit. We need a grace summit. And God is still in the grace business.